Good evening, everyone. It's Friday. It's the 20th of December, and we have a lot to talk about today. I don't have a lot of small talk today. I did have a really busy day and all of that, but I have a method of channeling my negative energy or my angry energy. And so that's what I had to do with what's going on right now. So let's go ahead and get into it. Please share with others. Please hit the like button. I want as many people to hear this as possible. I'm trying to straighten up my energy battery here. How many of you know what an energy battery is? I actually have that and the copper earrings. Anyway, there was a report that came out from the select subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic. These people that were in charge of this report, they were Congress people and they were a subcommittee in Congress. This is a 2-year report, and I'm going to explain to you how, as I read the report, I got more and more angry and then decided that I was going to write incoming President Trump. I didn't say yet what I was going to say, but I will tell you guys what I'm going to say in this letter. So, first of all, we are going to review, we're going to do a summary of this 500 and some odd page report that took them 2 years to develop. And I'm going to take my time going through it because that has a lot to do with why I got angry and why I want to write President Trump. Okay, so this was on December 2nd, and it's the Committee on Oversight and Accountability. Very important word, accountability. Final report, COVID Select concludes 2-year investigation, issues 500 plus page final report. Today, the Select Subcommittee on Coronavirus Pandemic concludes its 2-year investigation into the COVID-19 pandemic and released a final report titled After Action Review of the COVID-19 Pandemic. And I call it a pandemic, so I'm going to continue on with my own language. The lessons learned and a path forward. Listen carefully to the words that I speak. They're straight from the paperwork, from the summary. I did go over the report. There's a lot of emails in there in between people and Fauci and all those other people. I'm not getting into all the detail. I'm glad they did this summary because that report is heavy. So here we go. The final report will serve as a roadmap for Congress, the executive branch, and the private sector to prepare for and respond to future pandemics. Since February 2023, the Select Committee has sent more than 100 investigative letters, conducted more than 30 transcribed interviews and depositions, held 25 hearings and meetings, and reviewed more than 1 million pages of documents. Members and staff have exposed high-level corruption in America's public health system, confirmed the most likely origin of the pandemic, held COVID-19 bad actors publicly accountable, fostered bipartisan consensus on consequential pandemic-era issues, and more. This 520-page final report details all findings of the Select Subcommittee's investigation. I think you all heard me say that they're planning to respond to future pandemics. So keep that in mind. I'm going to go over the highlights of this 520 pages. I only have a few pages of it. The key points. I'm going to hit the key points, and I'm going to do the commentary during this time. So first of all, the origin. This is what they found concerning the origin. COVID-19 most likely emerged from a laboratory in Wuhan, China. The five strongest arguments in favor of the lab leak theory include: number one, the virus possesses a biological characteristic that is not found in nature. Number two, data shows that all COVID-19 cases stem from a single introduction into humans. This runs contrary to previous pandemics where there were multiple spillover events. Number three, Wuhan is home to China's foremost SARS research lab, which has a history of conducting gain of function research at inadequate biosafety levels. Number four, Wuhan Institute of Virology researchers were sick with a COVID-like virus in the fall of 2019, months before COVID-19 was discovered at the wet market. And number five, by nearly all measures of science, if there was evidence of a natural origin, it would have already surfaced. Now, how many of you, put a one in the chat if you've heard some of these things before, and the people that talked about it, they got their channels demonetized, they got strikes, they got called conspiracy theories and all kind of other names. Put a one in the chat if you heard these, and the people that were saying these got demonized. Several people, I know several people that I can count, that were doing stories early on saying that it was a lab leak, and they, poo-pooed them and said they were conspiracy theorists, and several people got their channels demonetized, all of this other stuff. And here we go. The truth always comes to light. Or what my grandmother used to say, it'll all come out in the wash. Okay, the proximal origin publication. The proximal origin of SARS-CoV-2 publication. This is a publication which was used repeatedly by public health officials and the media to discredit the lab leak theory, was prompted by Dr. Fauci to push the preferred narrative that C-19 originated in nature. Gain of function research. A lab-related incident involving gain of function research is most likely the origin of C-19. Current government mechanisms for overseeing this dangerous gain of function research are incomplete, severely convoluted, and lack global applicability. EcoHealth Alliance, this is a company, EcoHealth Alliance, under the leadership of Dr. Peter Daszak, used U.S. taxpayer dollars to facilitate dangerous gain of function research in Wuhan, China. Let me remind you that this is a congressional subcommittee coming out with this information. These are government officials. It's not me saying this. It's the government officials. It's in the 520-page report. If you want to read the report is online. If you want to read this summary, it is online. And this is what has been found. They used U.S. taxpayer dollars to facilitate dangerous gain of function research in Wuhan, China. After the select subcommittee released evidence of EcoHealth violating the terms of its National Institutes of Health grant, they got a grant, which is our money, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services commenced official debarment proceedings and suspended all funding to EcoHealth. What about prison time? Said nothing about prison time. They used our money to put us out of commission, ruin our lives, close our businesses, shut down our jobs, put our children out of commission for 2 whole years. And I don't see anything in this report that looks anything like JAIL or PRISON. But let me go on. New evidence also shows that the Department of Justice has opened an investigation into EcoHealth's pandemic era activities. So the Department of Justice supposedly opened up an investigation. You all know I'll be watching this closely to see if anybody gets prison time. NIH failures. The National Institutes of Health procedures for funding and overseeing potentially dangerous research are deficient, unreliable, and pose serious threats to both public health and national security. These are public officials, these are Congress people telling us this. Further, the National Institutes of Health fostered an environment that promoted evading federal record keeping laws, as seen through the actions of Dr. David Morins and FOIA Lady and Marge Moore. Evidently, these people were going after records that they weren't keeping. So they were asking for records. Some of the people were asking for records that didn't exist or they didn't give up. So we're going to move on to talk about taxpayer funding during the time of the pandemic. Okay, let me stop and see. Did this research funding begin in 2013? This research funding, it doesn't say, but it was definitely way before 2019 because I remember Dr. Buttar, which somehow mysteriously died. He said he was poisoned. Was talking about this was going on for a long time. He talked about other connections, but I believe it was before 2013. Let's go on. The efficacy, effectiveness, and transparency of the use of taxpayer funds and relief programs to address the coronavirus pandemic, including any reports of waste, fraud, and abuse. This is the next section. C-19 relief funding. Federal and state governments had significant lapses in coordination, were unprepared to oversee the allocation of C-19 relief funds, and failed to sufficiently identify waste, fraud, and abuse of taxpayer dollars during the pandemic. Paycheck Protection Program, or what's better known as the PPP. The Paycheck Protection Program, which offered essential relief to Americans in the form of loans that could be forgiven if the funds were used to offset pandemic era hardships, was rife with fraudulent claims, resulting in at least $64 billion of taxpayer $64 billion of taxpayer dollars lost to fraudsters and criminals. And I'm going to bring up one specific case right now. $80,000 went to an art gallery that represents Hunter Biden. $80,000. This art gallery has 2 employees. Okay, let's move. Fraudulent employment claims. Fraudsters cost the American taxpayers more than $191 billion by taking advantage of the federal government's unemployment system and exploiting individuals' personally identifiable information. Because if you recall correctly, they increased unemployment during that time. Small Business Administration failures. This is SBA loans. $200 million of taxpayer money were lost as a result of the SBA's inability to conduct proper oversight, implement internal controls, and ensure fraud protection measures were enacted. Expanding relief programs that lacked proper oversight functions exposed severe vulnerabilities in the system and paved the way for fraudsters, international criminals, and foreign adversaries to take advantage of the taxpayers. So it was not only people in our country that was receiving this money, it was fraudsters from all over the world that were receiving this money. When you file a tax return, if you missed one 1099 or one W-2, they're all over you and they want you to pay penalties and interest on it. And this is what we get. That same art gallery that Hunter Biden is associated with received $500,000 in SBA money with two employees. Okay. We're going to move on to the WHO, the World Health Organization. The WHO, the WHO's response to the C-19 pandemic was an abject failure because it caved to pressure from the Chinese Communist Party and placed China's political interest ahead of its international duties. Further, the WHO's newest effort to solve the problems, exacerbated by the C-19 pandemic via the Pandemic Treaty, may harm the United States. Social distancing. The 6 feet apart social distancing recommendation, which shut down schools and small businesses across the country, was arbitrary and not based on science. I read an article that said that maybe a year into this pandemic, and here they are finding out the same thing. The 6 feet thing was arbitrary. During closed door testimony, Dr. Fauci testified that the guidance, quote unquote, sort of just appeared. How many of you know? Put a one in the chat if you've already heard that Joe Biden is trying to formulate a way to give Anthony Fauci a preemptive pardon. Put a one in the chat if you've already heard that. He's trying to give this person a preemptive pardon. Let's move on. Mask mandates. I'm going to go off script just for a second to talk about what masks do when you have them on. And I'm going to just make it simple. When you're breathing out your air and you're breathing it back in, it affects your body, it affects your brain. And even more than that, it affects those babies that were in those schools. I know y'all can tell I'm trying to hold back my anger. So let's talk about the mask mandates. There was no, this is what the report says. I'm back to the report again. There was no conclusive evidence that masks effectively protected Americans from C-19. Public health officials flip-flopped on the efficiency, on the efficacy of masks without providing Americans with scientific data, causing a massive uptick in public distrust. You think? Lockdowns. Prolonged lockdowns caused immeasurable harm to not only the American economy, but also to the mental and physical health of Americans, with a particularly negative effect on younger citizens, our children. Rather than prioritizing the protection of the most vulnerable populations, federal and state government policies forced millions of Americans to forego crucial elements of a healthy and financially sound life. How many of you were hearing, oh, all we need to do, we need to go outside and get some air. We need to get some vitamin D from the sun. We need to exercise. We need to take herbs. I was hearing that. I don't know if you were hearing that, but I was doing it because I grow herbs on my property and I kept them in me and colloidal silver. But no, the lockdowns came. New York. Let's talk a little bit about New York specifically. New York pandemic failures. Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, March 25th order, which forced nursing homes to accept C-19 positive patients, was medical malpractice. Yes, they said it. Evidence shows that Cuomo and his administration worked to cover up the tragic aftermath of their policy decisions in an apparent effort to shield themselves from accountability. People's parents and grandparents died alone in these nursing homes because they couldn't even reach out to their family members. The development of vaccines and treatments and the development of implementation of vaccination policies for federal employees and members of the armed forces. In other words, they forced federal employees and members of the armed forces to take the arm charm. Operation, what is this? COVID-19 vaccine. Contrary to what was promised, the COVID-19 vaccine did not stop the spread or transmission of the virus. The FDA rushed approval of the C-19 vaccine. Two leading FDA scientists warned their colleagues about the dangers, and I've heard it all, I heard it also, about the dangers of rushing the vaccine approval process and the likelihood of adverse events. They were warned. They were ignored. Vaccine mandates. Vaccine mandates were not supported by science and caused more harm than good. The government coerced healthy Americans into compliance with C-19 vaccine mandates that trampled individual freedoms, harmed military readiness, and disregarded medical freedom to force a novel vaccine on millions of Americans without sufficient evidence to support their policy decisions. People lost their jobs for refusing to take the arm charm. Some of them, thankfully, have sued and won hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars recently. But how many other people are there that have been irreparably damaged because of this? Okay, I'm going to stop just for a second, and I'm going to go to the chat. Greenhouse effect, essentially. Mindy said, yes, they really upset me too. Gianna, for there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out to the open. Luke 8:17. It'll all come out in the wash. Yeah, it was upsetting with the little babies. My granddaughter is in school having to wear those masks, and as soon as she got picked up, I would snatch the mask right off her face. I was doing it, but didn't hear it. Okay. That was horrible. All of this is horrible. Les says, yes, that was my mindset because they were saying about all you can do is build your immune system, exercise, and leave windows slightly cracked. This was from non-government folks. Right. I saw some commercials from other countries that they were telling the people to go out and exercise and all of that. Many small businesses closed after the lockdowns. Yes, many. Okay, let's say natural immunity. That's what we're talking about just now. Public health officials engage in a coordinated effort to ignore natural immunity, which is acquired through previous C-19 infection when developing vaccine guidance mandates. The vaccine injury reporting system created confusion, failed to properly inform the American public about vaccine injuries, and deteriorated public trust in vaccine safety during the pandemic. Let's go to business impacts. Federal and state governments imposed mandatory lockdowns that were the primary cause of temporary and permanent business closures. More than 160,000 businesses closed due to the pandemic, with 60% of those closures classified as permanent. In other words, these people never opened back up. There's a bakery about 3 miles from here. It was here when I moved here in this area. I moved in this area in 1990. And it's gone. There's something else in its place now, but that was a staple in this community. We have no more bakeries over here because they couldn't stay open because nobody could come. You could go to Costco, you could go to Wally World, Walmart. That's what we call Walmart. Sorry. You could go to Walmart, you could go to Target, but you couldn't go to the bakery and the mom and pop stores. Okay, let's talk about the healthcare impacts. America's healthcare system was severely damaged by the C-19 pandemic. Patients experienced a decreased quality of care, longer wait times, shorter medical appointments, and missed diagnosis. There were people that were told that if they didn't have the arm charm, they couldn't get a procedure. People lost their lives because they didn't take the arm charm. Even after the doctors told the other doctors, hey, they can't do this because their whatever was going on with their body, they weren't supposed to take the arm charm. Well, they were denied services. Lots of people were denied services. Yeah. Okay, worker impacts. Unemployment rates surged to levels not seen since the Great Depression. Overly broad mitigation measures, including the now debunked 6 feet apart guidance, disproportionately impacted sectors with low wage earners. So people that worked in restaurants, people that worked in retail, people that had the lower jobs, hotel people, the maids, the people that worked in the hotels, all those lost their jobs. All these mom and pops had to close up. The societal impact on decisions to close schools, that's what we're going to talk about. And this is the last little page that I have on this. C-19 school closures. The science never justified prolonged school closures. Children were unlikely to contribute to the spread of C-19 or suffer severe illness or mortality. Instead, as a result of school closures, children experienced historic learning loss, higher rates of psychological distress, and decreased physical well-being. Now, when I checked before the pandemic, the United States was way behind as far as education on a worldwide basis. You have China, you have Japan, and other countries that were way ahead of the United States in the first place. But now it's way behind. The American Federation of Teachers. Schools remain closed longer than necessary because the American Federation of Teachers political interference in the CDC's school reopening guidance. The American Federation of Teachers is a political union, not a scientific organization, that advocated for mitigation efforts that prolong school closures, including an automatic closure trigger. Testimony revealed that American Federation of Teachers president had a direct telephone line to contact former CDC director Walensky. Long-term impacts. Standardized test scores show that children lost decades worth of academic progress. This is the report as a result of C-19 school closures. Mental and physical health concerns also skyrocketed, with self-deletion attempts by 12 to 17-year-olds rising 51%. I'm going to say that again. Self-deletion attempts by 12 to 17-year-olds rose. It was girls. 12 to 17-year-old girls rose 51%. Got one more little section. I'm going to go back to the chat. Yes. Rich, yes. War crimes. Scary to think what's next. And we're going to talk about that too. Everything about that time is upsetting on both sides of the coin. Most of the population did not do any research and just accepted authority over them. And you're right. And there are some things happening now that's blowback from that. I won't even talk about what that is. They might shut this live stream down or take it off or whatever anyway, since I'm talking like this, but they shouldn't, because this is a public report. Les says, I listened to a guy named Titus with a prolific nutritionist who was all over it to the point that he refused to get the arm charm, regardless if it caused us to be unemployed or ostracized. Now, I do know a few people that became unemployed because of that, but I do know a few people that just broke because they had bills to pay. They had a house note, they had car notes, and their job required them to take it. So there were some that stood up and there were some that caved. Okay, in 2018, my tinfoil husband warned me about this. Are you still calling him tinfoil? He's not tinfoil anymore. He's been exonerated. He said these people want to depopulate. Yes, they plan to release. He didn't want to be here when this happened. Sounds familiar. In 2019, oh, he passed away. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Well, you exonerated him from being a tinfoil. Anyway, One Life says, I've been following you for a very long time. If anyone, I trust you completely to represent the truth in your letter to President Trump and his administration. We'll get to that. Les says, also, the very fact that they closed the churches led me to believe that it was unsubstantiated, because church is the very place where you go to get healed and comforted. It's a shame. And they were locking up pastors, actually, that some pastors said we're going to have church. You know what? Even some of the churches were having church in the parking lot, and they were distancing their people out, and still, they had the microphone and all that, and they didn't want them doing that. This was a whole move about control. Anyway, let's see. Ears to hear. Me, I volunteered myself to be unemployed. Yeah. One Life said, I didn't get it. It was ostracized and even ended up quitting gladly. Yes, and with honor. Yolanda says, then the case of the essential workers. So some people had to go to work. Ha. Anyway, I remember on Facebook, before somebody hacked into my Facebook, I put a little video up there of some nurses basically saying that, they weren't going to take it, and they had all the documentation, and they came to work and they got put out. Anyway, I'm going to go back for the last few little sections. The Health and Human Services engaged in a multi-year campaign to delay, confusion, confusion, and non-responsiveness in an attempt to obstruct the Select Committee's investigation and hide evidence that would incriminate or embarrass senior public health officials. It appears that the Health and Human Services even intentionally under-resourced its component that responds to legislative oversight requests. In other words, they didn't send people to go and make sure that this committee got the information that they needed. EcoHealth obstruction. We talked a little bit about them earlier, but EcoHealth President Peter Daszak obstructed the Select Committee's investigation by providing publicly available information. He didn't give them anything but what was already out there, instructing his staff to reduce the scope and pace of productions and doctoring documents before releasing them to the public. Further, Daszak provided false statements to Congress. This is in the report. Dr. Fauci's senior advisor, Dr. David Morins, deliberately obstructed the Select Subcommittee's investigation, likely lied to Congress on multiple occasions, unlawfully deleted federal C-19 records, and shared non-public information about the National Institutes of Health grant process with EcoHealth president. So in other words, he helped him win that grant. That's what I have. There's a letter that's also involved in the letter from the person who was head of the committee. And basically he wrote a letter saying that, he was proud to be a part of the committee and all that. And he highlighted a lot of the information that I just said, and I didn't want to repeat that. But yeah, you remember me showing the information about the nurses, and then people just railed on me for that, Les. And then after that, I got hacked. So when I started thinking about all of this, as most of you know, if you're in my tribe, you more than likely know that in 2007, I was tried on a misdemeanor charge of willful failure to file tax returns. I decided that I was going to keep the money that I earned, that it didn't belong to them. It's theirs, not ours. I backed that up with information, Supreme Court cases, state Supreme Court cases. Several other people were like minded. I was not the only one that was prosecuted. We started speaking out. Joe Bannister, John Turner, and myself, and some others started speaking out. We were doing seminars. Some of you might have even come to the seminars. And then Aaron Russo came. Well, first of all, let's go back a little bit. When we started getting a lot of notoriety, then there was a hearing. Charles Grassley was the head of the Senate Finance Committee, and they had some hearings, and they had our pictures blown up on easels from when we were in the USA Today. So there were particular USA Today articles. One had 5 businessmen in that USA Today. It was an advertisement. So the We the People Foundation for Constitutional Education had put 4 full-page ads out in the USA Today. They had contracted for 12 ads. And after the 4th ad, the legal department for the USA Today came back and said, no, we're not going to do any more because you're telling people to do something illegal. We weren't telling people to do anything. But one of the ads that came out, they would all come out on Friday, so people would have access to that whole paper all weekend. It said, what do these 5 men have in common? They're all business owners that have refused to take money from the paychecks of their workers. Ours said, me, Joe, and John said, what do these 3 people have in common? They're all former IRS employees who something like believe that the income tax is a fraud. It didn't say a fraud, but whatever it said. So they had these pictures blown up. Now I didn't go. When I found out that we weren't going to be able to speak, I didn't go. But I got the report that they were arguing back and forth about how we're going to shut these people down. We got to stop these people because they're contrary to the narrative that we want to tell people. And right after that, they started trying to prosecute people. Along that same time, Aaron Russo, the guy that made Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and The Rose with Bette Midler, he decided to do a documentary. It's still out there. For those of you that don't know about it, it's called America, Freedom to Fascism. He had me, Joe, John, some other former IRS agents, former FBI agent, constitutional attorneys, and businessmen come out to Hollywood and film this documentary. It came out in the movies for a week. I heard that lines were around the corner, and then all of the top movie theaters shut it down. And then it went to the smaller movies, and then it went to the DVD and all that. But that was one of the things that made us more than low-flying gnats on the government's radar screen. So they prosecuted Joe. Joe had some great lawyers, and his jury got a chance to see and hear certain things, like the videos that he was in. He won his case, and a couple of other people won their cases. Specifically, 3 months before my case, a lawyer named Tommy Cryer from Shreveport, Louisiana. This lawyer had not filed a tax return in over 10 years. He won his case because he got up there with a whole bunch of Supreme Court cases, state and federal, that basically said income is corporate profit. What we get is an exchange. So the way I want to explain it is, for example, I'm going to pick somebody in here. Ears to hear, you and I make an agreement that I'm going to come and cut your grass for $100. You know, we have a right to contract based on the Constitution. So I get out in your front and backyard and I cut it. I use my arms, I use my legs, I use my eyes, I use my ears, I use my creativity. I do a great job, and you, in exchange for my life force, you give me $100. So I'll never get that time and energy back that I used to cut your grass. In exchange for my time and energy and life force, you gave me $100. That's not supposed to be taxed when you look back at all of that. By the way, if you want what we now call the memorandum, Tommy Cryer, that lawyer in Shreveport, Louisiana, did the 109-page memorandum, and that's what he had put together to win his case. It has all these court cases in it and stuff. I have that memorandum. If you want that, just send me an email at connect@sherrypeeljackson.com. I will send you that memorandum, and I think I even might have the transcripts from his court case. I may have that. So if you want that, I can send it to you. I don't mind. So when going back to my example, so ears to hear and we did that exchange. I used a lot of time and I was sweating and all that, and I got $100, and the government wants to tax that. Now let's flip over and talk about the smallest Walmart in the United States. Let's say today it brought in $100,000, but it has to pay wages. It has to pay rent on the building. It has to pay electricity. It has to pay for all those goods that are in there. And let's say all of those expenses add up to $80,000. So the Walmart is going to be taxed not on $100,000, but $20,000. I hope that helps you understand the inequity of taking our resources, because our founding documents say it says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and they have certain unalienable rights, not inalienable. I don't know what that is. Unalienable. You cannot put a lien on my rights. I have unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, life, liberty, property. I have the right to go out and feed my family without you getting in my pocket. That was my whole premise. Okay. I went to court. It was kangaroo court. My lawyer was not able to ask the jury this question. I wanted to ask the jury one question. That question was, would you be afraid to acquit Miss Jackson for fear that the IRS was going to come after you? And I believe in my heart that every hand in that place would have gone up, nullifying the jury. But I didn't get to ask that question. They did not let me talk about the Supreme Court cases that Tommy Cryer. When you're a winning football team, those of you who follow football, you are a winning football team and you won all these games, and all of a sudden you have a loss. You lost a game. The first thing that the coaches and the team have to do on Monday morning, they go back to the drawing board to see what they did wrong. By the time they got to prosecuting me, they brought people in from Washington, D.C. to Atlanta to make sure that I didn't win that case. Every time I tried to talk about why I wasn't filing tax returns, the judge would say, I will instruct the jury on the law. And those scared people, of course, they weren't going to vote for me. So there were 4 years that they selected that I had not filed. In each of those years, I made over $100,000. And at least 9 times during that case, at least 9 times, the prosecutor said, and this year she made $100 and something thousand. And then this year he kept saying it over and over to kind of get the jury to hate the fact that I was a 6-figure earner. And then they put some other stuff in there, and some things were said in that trial that made me know for 100% they were tapping my phone. And also there were several people that were informants that came to me over the time. They sent a couple to me, and the man was pretending like he didn't want to file, and the wife wanted to file, and they were scared. And when they started pressing me to tell them what to do, I knew they were undercover or informants or whatever. They wanted me to tell them what to do. And there were other situations like that. I have a little bit of a spirit of discernment. I knew what was going on. So I lost that case on a misdemeanor. That woman charged me, not based on the fact that it was one thing that I did, willful failure to file. She, instead of doing a concurrent charge of 1 year, because remember, a misdemeanor is a 1 year. This was not a felony. She stacked 4 misdemeanor charges on top of each other. So I got a 4-year sentence because I decided to keep what I earned. And not only that, they tried to tack 4 years of probation on there. Like, yeah, they did. I had some great people. Shout out to Lindsay Springer, and shout out to, he knows who he is, um, that wrote a brief for me that said, you cannot give her 4 years of probation because she didn't do a capital crime. So they had to redo that whole order and do the 4 years sentence and 1 year of probation. This all happened to me. And when I was there in front of her for the sentencing, because I was alone at that time, because I felt like my representation didn't do what it was supposed to do. And I had people helping me, thank goodness. But the prosecution asked for what's called an upward departure. In other words, they hated me so bad that the normal sentence that I should have gotten was 36 months, and they asked for 48. And she gave it to him. And this is what she said. And I know some of you have probably already heard me do this, but I'll never forget it. I'm looking at her after she's made her decision. First of all, going back to the trial, once the jury came back with 4 counts of guilty, she got up and walked off. She didn't say another word. She just got up and left. Never seen anything like that. The people that were around me, I had a lot of supporters. Joe Bannister came, Paymon came. All these people came to my trial. And nobody said, they'd never seen anybody, the judges, get up and walk out. But during this sentencing hearing, which was on Valentine's Day, 2008, this woman looked at me and said, I know you homeschool your children, Miss Jackson, and I know you got a lot of family support, but you can't run around the country telling people not to file income tax returns. And I looked her right in the eye and I said, I've never done that. We never did that. We made a pact that we weren't going to tell people to file or not to file or pay or not to pay. And we just shared information with them. We shared what was in the code. We shared our experiences. We shared all this information. Yet what she said to me let me know that I was being drugged because I was sharing the information. I wasn't telling people not to file a tax return, but I was sharing information that would make people think about, you know what, this is my money. We would actually pass out paperwork with codes and regulations, when we were having seminars. So I'm going to stop just for a minute and I'm going to go to the chat. One Life says, I remember they definitely targeted you and made an example of your case. Praying Trump will abolish the IRS. Gina says, I remember I followed you, Joe Bannister, Aaron Russo. Thank you for all you've done. Absolutely. Estella says, I would like to get a copy. Okay, definitely. Anybody who wants a copy, send an email to connect@sherrypilljackson.com. They put the estoppel of due process and used you as an example. Yeah, I was, yeah, that was wicked. More people are waking up. That's right. People are standing up to their scare tactics. That's true. And yeah, correct. I never did tell people what to do. And yeah, people are waking up. I've gotten calls from Kuwait, from soldiers saying that they just saw the Aaron Russo movie, and I've got people within the IRS, no names called, telling me, they believe me, they honor me, and all of that stuff, but they too scared to leave because they won't be getting that much money. Now the government pays a lot. A lot of times they pay a lot more than corporate America, and it's less strict. So if you don't get your work done in corporate America, you're out the door. It takes almost an act of Congress to fire you when you're working for the government. So let's talk. Is that judge still alive? I don't know. Her name was Orinda Evans, and I don't know whether she's still alive or not. I never did look. Um, I believe that evil will be uh, these people that do these things, they'll get paid back. I'm not going to go after anybody. I would rather, continue to live my life and, have fun and all that. And I don't hold that grudge. Whatever happens to them, it's going to happen. And whatever is going to happen to them, from the Lord's standpoint, is going to be much worse than I could do anyway. Estella, I keep wondering if my rights are unalienable. Why did the Department of Defense file a lien on all men and women and hands? Yeah. Because we don't read and we don't know what's going on, and a lot of times we don't bind together. Yes, vengeance is the Lord, it's not mine. And my husband and I saw the movie, yes, back in 2013. It's still out there online. So this letter, now that we're closing in on 9 and we might go a little bit over, I want that sentence expunged. I want my record expunged. There were 4 people that contacted me during the day because they saw the title where I was going to write a letter to President Trump, and they were saying stuff like, yeah, I would be a good advisor, and I wouldn't turn that down. Seeing as this, I think in his cabinet right now, all of these people that he wants to nominate to be in his cabinet. I saw one black guy that's supposed to be in charge of housing. I saw a lot of, other people. I think the one that he wants to be the FBI might be an Indian from India, but I don't want to be. I don't want to be in a cabinet or anything like that. I don't want to be in the sludge up there. But I would definitely, if he asked me some questions, I'd definitely answer them. But I want my record expunged. My life was upended. I spent 3 whole years in a federal prison. And Hunter Biden just got pardoned. After all this money, after the guns, after the trafficking, after all these business dealings, all the dirt that he did, he just got pardoned. And from what I'm told, there's some other people that got a pardon that did some dastardly things. At least 39 of them, I hear. Somebody told me 39 of the people that Joe Biden pardoned are just ruthless in what they did, stealing money from charities or whatever. And they're about to try to do some preemptive pardons before he gets out, because the people that haven't been charged yet, they know they're going to get charged. They know that this administration is coming in, is chomping at the bit to get Fauci and some other people, especially Rand Paul. I mean, Rand Paul just grilled Fauci, during those years and after those years. And Fauci just sat there and lied like a whatever. So I'm going to write this letter, and I'm going to probably get back with you all to maybe sign some petitions or something. I'll have to figure that out. But I got my anger got so bad today, and that negative energy got so bad that I had to figure out something to do to channel into something that might be positive. And maybe, Biden is doing all of these outgoing pardons. I would like Trump to do a incoming pardon as he comes in, expunge my record, because we have precedent that the income tax was never meant for us. As a matter of fact, you guys know that he's trying to bring the tariffs back. It says impost, excise, duties, and tariffs. And people like Valuetainment, the guy Patrick David, all of them have been talking about these farmers case and all the other cases in Supreme Court that basically says they're not supposed to be messing with our livelihood. We got people out here barely surviving and they're getting 1/3 of their money taken away out of their paychecks before they get them, before even God is paid. I haven't changed my thoughts about it. It's still wrong. And I don't regret standing up for what's right. I hate that I had to go to prison and lose my marriage and, you know, all of the stuff that happened when I was gone, starting over. Even when it comes down to clientele, when I try to get clients, I make sure that they know my background up front because I don't want to try to get consulting clients and then they find out later. I was on a podcast not too long ago and I wasn't aware of the guy not knowing my background. And we did the whole podcast and stuff. And then I got an email from him saying, well, you could have told me that and I was like, I thought you knew. I'm sorry. So how many of you agree that I should write this letter to the president? I'm going to do it. And I would love for you all to put some suggestions in there about what I should say concerning advice. I mean, when I thought about the people that responded today that said that they would love for me to give him advice or be part of his advisory committee or whatever, I thought about, and y'all know I'm a Trekkie, remember that now, Captain Jean-Luc Picard. Somebody put in the chat if you know who he used to go to for counsel when he was confused, when he was upset and didn't know what to do. Who on that ship would he go to for counsel? I want to see if somebody knows. I might not have any Trekkies in here, but anyway, let me go to the chat and see what we have. Yusuf L, very good teacher about the legal system. I'm familiar with him. I will commit to helping you, Estella. Thank you. You all that want to help out, just email me and say it, and then I'll let you know what's going on. I'm very good at certain things, and you, our dear friend, will get that record gone under Trump's first 100 days. All right. I like that. All right. Yes, these days are crucial. You will definitely have your record expunged. Joel 2:25. He is the restorer of times and seasons. Yes. He is a restorer of years. Comes to mind for you. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yes. Okay. I am going to write him. Thank you for telling the truth and being a positive role model for Americans. I think you should. I will. You're such a warrior. Yes, please write the letter. Blessings to you. Enlighten Trump on the legal code. I'm sure he knows these things, and I don't know who's holding what over whose head, but there's a lot behind the fact that these people know that this is wrong, but it keeps going. It's a power thing. It's the corporatocracy that runs the government. And I've named, I'll name Vanguard, BlackRock, all these companies. And there are others involved in making sure that these things continue on. Did you see JT, the pocket watcher, had made a video about you a while back? Yes, I did see that. I saw it a year after it was done, and I did a rebuttal to it. And if you want to see the rebuttal, my rebuttal, if I recall correctly, is called "Who's Hating on Dr. Sherry Peel Jackson?" or "Who's Hating on Sherry Peel Jackson?" I did a whole rebuttal to that. And to make a long story short, all that was lies because I didn't get my CPA license taken. He told some lies in there, and I was told that I could sue him for what is it? It's libel. I could sue him if I could prove that I lost clients or I lost money because of what he said. And I couldn't because I don't know who looked at it and said, I see this thing. I'm not going to use her. I'm not going to consult with her. If I could have one person come and say, oh, I was going to buy one of her packages, but I saw that thing. Yeah. I don't know of anybody and I'm not going after. He'll get his. Let's see. Spock lived near me in Washington. His son was friends with my friends growing up. Wow. That's interesting. Leonard Nimoy. I want my money back that they unlawfully took. I do too. Do you think he already knows all this? I do think that incoming President Trump knows all this. I'm sure he's been briefed on all of these, the tax honesty movement and all the things that, about the income tax. Uh, the Valuetainment show the other day, Patrick Bet David, he went through the whole thing. It's like he didn't come out and say the income tax was a fraud, but might as well. I mean, he went back into history and talked about how it was voted down, and then on Christmas Day or the day after Christmas in 1913, I believe it was, they voted on it when everybody was away. Just dastardly stuff like that, evil stuff like that. Everybody was in their homes and nobody was there. And the people who wanted to do this Federal Reserve and income tax thing, they schemed to get it done. State Street. Okay, One Life. Just tell your story. Okay, it could be made into a movie. It could. You're a pioneer, a brave patriot to be admired. Thank you, One Life. I will tell a little bit of it. I'll be as brief as possible, but I'll put enough in there to make sure that he understands. Probably put some links to the movie in there. Since you put it out in the atmosphere, it's already done. Thank you. I will be willing to help in any way possible. Thank you. Defamation of character. That's exactly what he did. And it was so interesting that he even talked about my doctorate degree, and anybody that has a doctorate in ministry is not worth anything or something. That went against all of the people that have a doctorate in ministry. So, I mean, he didn't do his research because my CPA license wasn't taken. When I lost that case, I was a CPA, a certified fraud examiner. I was a member of the AICPA, the Georgia Society. I turned all that stuff back in. And the reason I knew to do that, remember, I told you guys that Joe Bannister won his case. When Joe Bannister was tried and won his case, the IRS got so mad that they went to the California Board of Accountancy and asked the California Board of Accountancy to take Joe's CPA license. And they did. Even though he was acquitted, they took his license. So I knew that with me losing my case, they were going to try to take mine. So I turned them all back in with a two-sentence letter saying that here's I'm relinquishing this license. Here it is, whatever. If you go out to the Georgia Society of CPAs and put my name in, you'll see that I voluntarily gave my license back. He could have seen that if he had checked. He could have seen that I didn't have my license taken, because it would have said something like revoked, and it doesn't. And I snapshotted it and I put all of that stuff in there. And even he talked about, my degree was whatever he called it. I wrote 180 some odd page dissertation. I worked on that thing for over a year. And how dare he say that my doctorate doesn't mean anything, and all the other pastors. I don't know what that guy, I think he just does that for clicks or whatever. I don't know, but he better be careful, because at some point or another, somebody's going to be able to sue him for that. Because if I had people that were able to say, I was going to buy her $25,000 package, but I found out that her license got taken or whatever, then if I could have somebody say that and testify to that, then I would go after him. But anyway, it's another story. Let's see what else is in here before we go. Tell your story. Okay. Do you think the Federal Reserve will end? If the handlers want it to end. I don't think, I don't think that President Trump is going to be able to do the heavy stuff on his own. I know he's trying, but I don't think he's going to be able to do that stuff. EJ says, I keep learning from you. I'm trying to write off everything plus the kitchen sink. I say, but the kitchen sink, but EJ saying plus the kitchen sink. Okay. Cheryl Jackson, I have prayed to Father God that President Trump will expunge your record. Thank you. It is already done. Amen. God doesn't play about you. No, he doesn't. I mean, he makes sure that his children are taken care of. I'm sorry to have brought it up. I just noticed it and wanted to bring it. Yeah, no problem about bringing it up. No problem. And I wanted, the people here to know that, yeah, there's somebody out there that, did a hit piece on me, but I rebutted that hit piece and just to let people know. I mean, I don't know that the people that look at his show will even find it, but at least it's out there. And don't feel bad about bringing that up. It doesn't bother me. They drag Jesus, so I don't feel bad about being dragged. Gold backed currency by the states. I do see that some states are doing that with silver and gold, and I wanted to catch on. I really do. I believe the Fed will come to an end. I'm praying that that's the truth. What is one message to wake people up from this new life after everything you went through? What is one message to wake people up? Keep getting up. No matter what knocks you down, keep getting up. I don't stay down for long. I've had a lot of stuff happen to me, the marriage and this thing here. I'll keep getting up. To me, there's always something to live for. My father used to tell me, if you got, if you just got to the point where you just couldn't handle it, just move to Houston. And I don't know why Houston was, it was just a city, any city, but he just said, he just move. But I kept getting up. It's like, I have purpose in this world. I have something of value to add to my family. I have something of value to add to the marketplace. So I just keep getting up. So that's it right there. That's the message. What John Kennedy didn't finish up, Trump will. That would be interesting. That would be great. We have to pray for our leaders, pray for the president, because people don't like people to shake up the apple cart. Thank you, Jacqueline. You will be an advisor for the new administration. I would definitely be a great advisor for this, because when you're older like me, and you get a little bit of wisdom in you, and you know what works and doesn't work, and especially in certain communities, a lot of those people are out of touch. They've been living in the ivory tower for a long time, and they need to start paying attention. And I think now that this election has come, and they were paying attention to a lot of woke stuff, and they weren't paying attention to the economy and how people were suffering. Now, I think people are waking up in politics and in the media. The media is complicit in all of this that we talked about, because they put all of that stuff out there. Thank you, Estella. We went through what you did for now. Yeah. So I'm going to do the letter. I'll probably do it during this break time. I'm going to take some time. Yes. Caesar got it. It was actually, her name was Guinan. She was played by Whoopi Goldberg, and her name was Guinan. And he always went to Guinan when he just lost his way. So that's the first thing that came to mind when somebody that wrote that about me kind of helping out. So yeah, I'm gonna write it. Probably, it'll be before the beginning of the year, and I kind of need to find out from my friends where to send it. I was going to send it via email somewhere and via snail mail somewhere, and send it like FedEx via snail mail. And I've got some connections that might be able to help me put a petition together. So I'll work on all of that starting probably Monday. And thinking of that, we will have a show on Friday, but we won't have any more. Let's see. I've got my calendar here. You guys know I'm old school with the calendar. So this Friday, I plan on coming on, and not next Tuesday, because that's Christmas Eve. I will be on the 27th. Oh, I'm sorry. This is Friday. I will be on the 27th. I will not be on the 24th. This coming Tuesday, I'm not going to be on, because I'll be cooking probably. Yes, I will be cooking. We're going to have Hawaiian turkey and some other stuff. And then I will be on the 27th. And then I will not be on the Tuesday, because that is New Year's Eve. So our last show of 2024 will be on the 27th. Then I'll be back next year. One more announcement. I am going to create some classes that are automatically going to teach people how to make money. So let's say, and I want you to answer if you have a specific class, but what I wrote so far, I may do a class on how to write a book, because I have 9 books and I make money that way. I may do a class on how to create courses, do a course on how to create courses. So if you have some courses in mind, then learn how to actually create a course. I might do one on how to speak on stage. And if there's something else that somebody, what I want to do is I want to create courses that will, when you finish the course, you can automatically start making money. Not just, you know, I teach you how to reduce taxes and all that, but everybody, we remember now, I didn't say it this time, but we're going to thrive in 2025. So to that end, you need to learn how to do something that's going to make money. I want to start these courses in the middle of January after everybody's, you know, come back from the holidays and all of that. I just want, and I won't be able to do but one at a time. So I don't know whether somebody wants to write a book. So you all chime in and email me. Please email me to let me know, hey, I would like to a course on this. I would like a course on that. You can even put it in the comments section, and I'm going to start tallying what people want to learn. Of course, it's not going to be how to fix a car because I don't know that. But anything to do with finances and business. I was thinking about one, how to become an enrolled agent, and I laughed. I said, none of you all want to learn how to prepare tax returns. Anyway, so I'm going to go and I'm going to check one more time to see. Thank you. Our prayers and the Holy Spirit will guide you. Yes. Yes. The oracle from the Matrix was a black woman as well. You're right. I didn't think about that, Caesar. You're right. You're right. Adam Pro, look forward to hearing from you. Yes. The View is so disgusting. Yeah, never watched it. I don't like wokeism, and it came back to bite them in the behind. We need to write. Okay, okay. That's one of the courses that I already have actually written, and so that one is my first choice, but somebody else might come up with something else. The second choice is creating a course. How to create an actual course that you can put online. Because everything that we want to do is something that you can sell online. You create a book one time, like How to Stick It to the IRS, and that book is sold thousands and thousands and thousands of times. So this is what we want to do. We want to work harder. I mean, smarter, not harder. So with that, everybody have a good uh holiday coming up. Good Christmas, and then I'll see you on the 27th, and I'll be putting some information in, maybe in the community section about the letter. But please let me know if you want that memorandum. Please let me know what courses you want, and just please continue to pray for this expunging of my record so that all this anger can go away. Everybody have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.